What's good, everyone? It's your boy Siffy G, the Esoteric Warrior. Hope everyone's doing good today. As you know, last weekend I had a good old visit from an old Kung Fu brother, Siffy Jen Sam, and we're having a good old chat about old stories, as you do. Haven't seen him for 24 years, so we had a lot of catching up and chats and a few little stories, and I thought I'd tell you one which will lead on to this little podcast. Back in the 90s, early 90s, probably 89 maybe, Sam was teaching, and he was teaching at the Jalgar School in Sydney, at Randy Bennett's school. He used to hire the hall there. And one of my other Sihings that jumped ship to Guangzhou Batmei at the time, always visited and still did some Yokomun training and caught up. We always test hands, as you do in Kung Fu, playing around, and he thought he would want to have a little go. I said, okay. So he got into his stance like this, like, typical, Batmei and Yokomun as well, but we don't stand like this. No one stands like this in a fight. But he did. So I faked the jab and I caught him on the fingers and just got him straight in the finger lock. So it's all about how you are up here as a fighter. I see his fingers straight away and I'm going to try and get him, I don't just go, unless the guy is hopeless and he's wide open, you can hit him, but someone that you don't know, obviously you don't know your opponent on the street. That's why you got to be very cluey on what you use and how you use it, right? So the first line of defense is your hand, right up to your wrist. And a lot of everyone wants to land the big punches, and that is the first thing that you need to learn is your basic strikes, right? But defense-wise, apart from your footwork, body evasion, and distance, right, your hands are used. And a lot of the arts that I teach use wrist power, and a lot of these southern arts in Kung Fu, you see this wrist power a lot, but it's not very shown in a context of real self-defense, right? So if you've built up your iron palm and you've done a lot of conditioning, as well as trained all your muscle groups the correct way, right? As you do with roller bars, claw bags and everything like that, this all builds up the physical body, the tendons, muscles, joints, and so forth. But just your wrist power alone can win a fight if you understand how to use it, right? Attacking using, first, if you have your hand in a vertical manner, right, you got your wrist up, down, you got in, out. You'll see this in Iron Snake a lot. You see it in Praying Mantis as well as you got flat down, you're up, down, and in, out with your wrist. So all this has to be used to train just short power, right? So evasiveness, you need to have a soft type of bridge, and attacking a hard type of bridge, and attacking their bridge with these techniques, right? Because you don't stand there and go, is it up, down, left, right? It should be subconscious reaction, and through two-man drills and training and just doing heaps of sparring, just working on wrist power alone rather than just strikes, then you got to even up your game, right? Everyone wants to just go bang, 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 and bang. Same with hammer fist as well, right? Over commitment of the hammer can get you knocked out. Throwing it wrong can break your own arm, damage your shoulders, and so forth. So time and place for everything, of course, but if you look at your the sungun of you got your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder. Just like I talk about when you got your guard up, whatever it is, right? They got to come past your wrist, your elbow, and this rear hand, right? So you'll see a lot of Bap Mei and Lung Ying, and they always keep one hand at the elbow here for most things, right? So if you look at just your first line of defense, your wrist is your wrist and your wrist defense and attacks up to scratch. Are you able to protect yourself with just your wrist power? That's what I'm trying to get at, right? So there's a lot of thought that has to go in. How will you use these techniques, right? So if I gave you just that to work with, how would you apply it? What would be your techniques? How would you develop your power, right? So remember, we talk about all the looking in the body, the 6 joints, or the bucking with the neck and the teeth. So every joint has to be understood. Every joint has to be strengthened and conditioned. And every joint, as in knowledge-wise, like in the Bap Mei book, I talk about it. So if you haven't got the Bap Mei book, you've got to get it. It's on Lulu, and it goes in depth about all the joints. And I talk about each joint, right? So you got the ball joint of the shoulder, so that's a 360 degrees. Then you got hinge joints in the body, and they work at a certain degree as well. So it gets skin deep, right? You got to understand everything you're doing, how the joints work, the degree of motion, the structure of it, the weakness of it, to be truly an experienced and knowledgeable teacher. Especially in these arts, it takes a long time and studying, right? You just can't get a poem and go, yep, looking, and just name the name the joints, and yep, that's looking, yep. No, each joint is a striking weapon, right? As you can see, elbows, you got shoulder as well, shoulder. You got your back, you got your hip, you got your knees and your ankles, right? So there's so much you can be playing with, but just these 4 movements of the wrist, either up or down this way, with your, see some people hold their hands like this, so you've got, or this type of movement, right? If you hold your hands like this, you've got this type of movement for coming straight through. Or you can come up or hit down if their hands are low, right? So you start to smash through and hit and slide through on their bridge. And using this bone here on this wrist can take out the nerve and weaken the limbs. And of course, hitting pressure points on the head doesn't need much for what we're trying to achieve. So you don't necessarily need to wind up and hit someone like that when you've got power in that wrist and they're not used to seeing, their brain can't comprehend that type of way of fighting, right? But most people see shape up, punch, and grab and try to get them to the ground, right? And that's your basics. But in these arts, you want to be able to also use that wrist for deflection. And like I said, soft type of bridge, you're going to be subconscious reaction. Like you see boxers, when they punch, they just boom, they just parry. and it's just subconscious. Attacking, if they got their hands in a certain way and you've got time to just smash down on that, or if it's coming around, you can hit up, right? So you can bounce it in, chop down and strike. There's so much you can do with just wrist powers. So probably just a long-winded chat, but it was on my mind. I thought I'd just chuck it in. All right, so have a good night.